Welcome back, everybody. Tonight, we're diving into the Houston wrestling territory, the wrestling promotion that made Friday nights must-see TV in Houston for decades. We'll cover the promoters, the stars, the famous rivalries, how TV and Sam Houston Coliseum built the seed. All this and more on tonight's episode of Ring Respect Radio's Trip Through the Territories. And boom, just like that, it's Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's party time with us. We're the Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson, and the man sitting beside me, he's the man with the angelic voice. Here's Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes, happy Thursday. How you doing, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great, Munson. Glad to be here for another episode of Ring Respect Radio, and especially glad when it's a trip through the territories.
You bet. It's going to be a fun one to talk about. We are going to get into it very shortly, Papa Smokes. We got a couple of things we were going to talk about right off the hop, but before we do that, we want to say hello to our friends in the chat, including this guy right here, always telling us what national day it is. Apparently National Pizza Day. Thank you, Zach, for letting us know. You can't go wrong when it's National Pizza Day. Now you're making me hungry from some za there, Zach. We also got the man who requested tonight's specific trip through the territories in the chat here. Brett Martinez in the house. Been looking forward to this, saying Houston wrestling finally getting the recognition it deserves. Well, hopefully we can do it right for you. Definitely going to do our best. And we've got Basser up in the house saying good evening, gents. Yes, this is going to be a night, Papa Smokes. But before we do, I want to first address one topic that's, it's a little bit of a hard topic to talk about, but somebody who was one of the very first interviews and guests that we had here on Ring Respect Radio many years ago when he was just starting out in the business. He was working as an undercard guy over in MLW, and we invited, at the time, the Stretcher Robert Martyr to come onto our show for an interview. We had a hell of a time. What a great dude and everything. And anybody who has been following online now sadly knows that he put out a message yesterday that sounded like he might be ready to end things. And he was, saying things like, I hope that I had an impact on people. He went missing for a period of time. His sister was all over social media trying to reach out to people, find out if they could find him. I will say they found him this morning. He is alive and well. He is getting the mental health treatment he needs and deserves to have. And from us here, Papa Smokes, this one definitely hit me very hard, having sat here and had a full conversation with this young man. From us, all the best, Robert. Get the help you need, brother. If you ever need anyone to talk to, just like anyone, you need someone to talk to, man, let's talk it out. We're here for you. Be happy to be there for you anytime. You are loved, you are respected. And yeah, Papa Smokes, a very sad one to think that we almost lost another good person in this world.
Oh, yeah, just very sad situation. And I was up late at night looking at X and just kind of seeing as this whole story unfolded, and it was very disturbing to me also. And like you mentioned, Robert Martyr, a friend of Ring Respect Radio and a friend of Bobby Munson and Papa Smokes. As you mentioned again, one of the first interviews we did, especially with someone outside of our area. And we had a great time talking to him. You can find that interview on our channels on YouTube and such, but he's a very interesting guy. It's been so much fun since that time, since he was green into wrestling, to watch him progress and get better throughout time. He just recently did a trip to Japan. That was a dream for him. This guy's a wrestling dude. He soaks up as much knowledge as he can. He watches a ton of old back catalog of wrestlers that he's impressed by and all that stuff. He's a student of the game. And as we know, a friend of ours, a really good influence in the wrestling world. And it's just tough to see him going through the things he was going through this past couple of days. But yeah, I hope that he realizes that he has a ton of fans in wrestling. He has a ton of people who love him, including people like us who don't know him super well, but have felt that positive influence that he has, that positive energy that he has throughout his being. And man, Robert, we just wish you the best all the time. Things get dark sometimes. Everybody has their struggles. Dude, we wish you the best. Really work at it and try hard. Get the help you need. And I hope that his support systems can bring him through this. And that I hope that we see him back in a wrestling ring soon and back feeling like himself again. And good luck to you, Robert. We love you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, tough to talk about, but moving on from there, we are going to talk about some more people joining us in the chat, like our good friend, the Mangler, joining us here, looking good.
Yeah.
I feel better, Munson. We believe in you. I appreciate it. Thank you. For those who don't know, we can get to this in a second here if we need to, Bob, as well. But first, see if I can get one of these underhanded, under the neck brace ones here for our friend Astrid joining us in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Astrid. And yes, Brett saying good evening to Astrid. Good evening, Mangler. We appreciate all the love in the chat. Keep the chat active. We love having you talk in amongst yourselves as well as asking some Q&A throughout the show. But speaking of this, for those who don't know, Papa Smokes, I've shown it on Sunday. It's going to be on this Saturday's PPW review that you and I do. But for those who haven't seen it, giddy up. Here's what happened to Bobby on Saturday night. I know people could watch it over and over again. I've seen people requesting that clip in particular, Papa Smokes. They seem to be loving every second of it. My neck's not loving every second of it, I'll tell you that much. The fact that I didn't get any sleep that night because I was being attended to medically isn't that great. But, at the end of the day, Los Slantos was a hell of a success. And everything that went down, despite it being chaotic and messy, led to the upcoming steel cage match on October 25th. And I will warn the PPW Nation, all the tickets, all the seating tickets are sold out, and we are very well sold on the general admission standing room tickets. If you have not bought tickets at all, you are being a damn fool. Get your messages in. There is a handful of general admission standing room tickets remaining. Get yours today, or find out that you're going to have to wait a long ass time to see those results on the PPW YouTube channel. Yes, Papa Smokes enjoys it a lot. I almost cynically too much, to be honest.
Well, Munson, that's taking it a little too far. Okay, I'm sorry for laughing and all that, Munson. I don't want to see you get hurt. You're my friend. You're my bro for a number of years now and everything. I don't want to see you get hurt. But I hate to say I told you so. But I told you so, Munson, and I told you of the wrath that you were going to bring on yourself by running your mouth, by putting your mouth on El Asesino, any chance you could get. I told you what was going to happen. This man is violent. He's sadistic. He's insane. And you just don't poke a guy like that as much as you poked him. He wanted that chair that you were sitting on, Munson. That's it. So he had to get you off that chair somehow. And that's what you get. But I don't want to see you hurt, Munson, but this is what happens. And that's what happened at Los Slantos. So maybe you've learned your lesson, but I have heard you still making some conspiracy theories about El Asesino. I've heard some of the things you've had to say. I don't think you've learned yet, Munson. And even with your little special little collar that you've got on there, your little halo or whatever they call that, you had half of your vertebrae smashed through the back of your neck by that super kick. But are you going to learn? We'll see. Time will tell. But El Asesino took care of business on Saturday night, as he always does.
I'm telling you, Papa Smokes, I'm 42 years old. I've been doing this for quite some time, and I haven't learned a goddamn thing. I am going to continue to expose every BS conspiracy and every wrongdoing that goes on in Prairie Pro Wrestling. And if it means that I have to get super kicked 1,000 times that everybody sees the truth, I am going to continue to get super kicked again and again and again and again to prove that everything I say is the right thing. And I will expose all these wrongdoers in Prairie Pro Wrestling over and over again.
You're a hero, Munson. You're a hero to all of us. You're going to end up with no head left and no neck left at this rate. You've had this coming for a long time, but hey, man, you're a grown-ass man. You make your own decisions. You won't be influenced by anyone's speaking logic or reason to you. So what can we do, Munson? I feel for you, and yet I don't feel at all for you.
Hey, Pop Smokes, is nothing but a few beers, then that stuff like that can't cure what happens to me for running my mouth. So guess what? Learned nothing, moving on from it, ready for my next super kick to come my way. Bring it on, boys. Munson loves the pain. All right, Papa Smokes, maybe we should get to our main topic of today, because Brett Martinez requested that we take about a trip through the territories, the history of Houston wrestling. But before we get started getting into the depths of the territory itself and the wrestling behind it, Pop Smokes, you always like to give a little insight into the history of the area itself. So why don't you have the floor and get us started with a little bit about Houston?
Yeah, for sure. Houston, one of the bigger cities in the state of Texas, down in the southeast corner. It's founded in 1836 and named for General Sam Houston, who had won Texas's independence from Mexico. Before that founding in 1836, the Karankawa and Atacapa peoples had lived there for thousands of years beforehand. They think up to 2,000 years beforehand. But this is, at this time, before there was much urbanization there, it's a rough area. It's a lot of swampy, marshy kind of land. It's close to what was previously called the Gulf of Mexico, now called the Gulf of America. It's very stormy down there. It's not the most hospitable area for a city, but it's very valuable for transportation and manufacturing. So it has become one of the larger cities in the U.S. I think something like 8th or 9th biggest city in the United States of America. So people have flocked to this area since the early 1800s. By 1930, it was Texas's most populous city. It went by transport and manufacturing until they started discovering oil there. Go figure, in Texas. That's been a big money maker for a long time for people and businessmen in Texas. And it has about, in the main urban center, it has 2.3 million people. But including all suburban development and stuff, it has over 7 million people. So this is a large area now. It's a humid subtropical climate. And like I say, lots of storms. It has hurricanes. It has floods there. So the people have to be careful. And it's a very culturally and ethnically diverse city. Lots of Latino and Latina people from Latin America living there. And lots of other kinds of immigrants to the U.S. as well. So culturally diverse. This always works out well for the wrestling crowds too, because you get all different kinds of fans coming there, and then they can book all kinds of different talent, including luchadors from Mexico and other kinds of wrestlers from throughout the U.S., Puerto Rico, and South America and Central America as well. So interesting to learn a little bit about Houston as a city before we dive into the wrestling.
Yeah, you bet. No, that's a great bit of a lesson there, Papa Smokes. I always love hearing the lay of the land or a little bit of the background there. I appreciate that you bring that to the table. Now, to kick things off, kind of started in about the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken, right? You talk about originally the Gulf Athletic Club, where it was established by the Seigel family prior to Paul Boesch. Is it Boesch is the pronunciation, is it?
Boesch. Bosch.
Bosch. Okay, so it was him that took over from the Seigel family or Seigel family, who originally established it. Seagulls, yes, in the 1920s.
Yeah, even earlier than the 20s. I think the shows were first run pre-World War One, so that World War One being 1914, that's very early in the country for having shows. They weren't regular. They didn't have a regular venue. It was kind of, we've seen this pattern repeated a lot as we've done these trips through the territories. There might not have been one constant promoter during these early days. People were just throwing shows to try and get some traction, to try and get some fans, but nothing super organized until Julius Siegel came in, in the 20s, and he really organized the whole, making it into one wrestling league or wrestling federation. And he also built an arena there, the old city auditorium, it was called. It's been torn down for a long time, since the 60s, I believe. But this allowed the wrestling shows to become regular in their presentation. Doesn't this help, as we know from our home promotion, PPW here, to have a constant venue? It's the same venue every single time. The fans know where to go. They know how much tickets cost. They have some idea of the talent they're going to see. So you can start building that regular fan base.
Yeah. No, 100%, Papa Smokes. So Paul Boesch ends up taking it over, and kind of just a little bit about him. He's a World War II veteran, commentator, promoter. He became the voice as well as the promoter behind the Houston territory.
For sure. And Morris Siegel, the older brother, or the younger brother, pardon me, of Julius Siegel, took over the promotions business in Houston. He didn't know, he wasn't a wrestling guy. He was a businessman, but he didn't know the wrestling business, the ins and outs of how to set up well drawing shows with top stars, kind of thing. He wasn't smart to the business, as they say. So he hired people around him that were from the business, that had that knowledge of how to talk to the talent, how to deal with the owners and staff of the venues and stuff like that. Really set up the shows so that the fans can enjoy them. Paul Boesch was one of those trusted people around Morris Siegel. That's not marvelous Morris Siegel, just Morris Siegel. But at any rate, Boesch had been a wrestler for a long time after being a hero in the war and that kind of stuff in World War II. Boesch had won various medals from a battle connected with the whole D-Day Normandy assault. It was called the Hurtgen Forest battle. It was one of the big battles in the European chapter of World War II. Many, many casualties on both sides, a very bloody conflict. And Boesch was injured in this battle, this battle as well. But he was a commanding officer in the infantry, and he didn't give up. So his men were victorious in that fight, and Boesch getting many commendations and many medals out of his military service, including that Hurtgen Forest battle. So he already came back to the U.S. as a bit of a hero, right? He's not only survived the war, but thrived there as well. So that does a lot for the fans who can recognize an American war hero and somebody coming into Houston to not only set up business and make entertainment for the fans through the wrestling business, but also doing philanthropy as well, doing charity work, raising money for the community and all that kind of stuff. Really puts you in good with the fans. The fans will come to your shows, especially when they know that the promoter is a good guy and a guy of high standing in the community.
Yeah, and as Brett's saying, Boesch was a real deal by every metric, 100%. Sure. And that's during researching this, that's kind of what kept coming up, is just the great reputation. And we see so many times that there's these big names that were in the territory days, and they were very well known because they were wrestlers that were well known in the ring and stuff like that, but not always known for making everybody like them. Not every single one of them was known for that good reputation. Boesch was the opposite of that. He was that guy that people liked. They appreciated him. He did those good things, and he kept that up to the point where he ran a good ship. Like it's hard to find anything in here. Like, it doesn't have those deep-seated dark stories of this territory. This is one of the ones you can watch and go, they did it right.
Yeah, that's well put, Munson, because Boesch had a ton of respect throughout the business. First of all, he was a promoter that had been a wrestler, and not just a pro wrestler, but a shooter as well, right? He was a tough guy. So those guys had extra respect in the business for not just being the performer, but you better not ever piss this guy off because he'll stretch you. And that was Paul Boesch, a nice guy, though, and known for treating his talent fairly, known for his good payouts, and known for giving wrestlers the dates they want and making money all the way to the bank as he did it. And
his years let you know he was tough.
That's right. That's right. And it's funny that Brett brings that up right now because Paul Boesch, towards later in his life, wrote 2 autobiographies about his life. First one was called The Career of Paul Boesch, One Man, One Sport, One Lifetime. That's a pretty cool title. But I like the second one even better. His second autobiography was called Hey Boy, Where'd You Get Those Ears? And that's an absolute nod to the shooter right there. You would always know the tough guy wrestler because he had those cauliflower ears. You don't get those without years and years of hard grappling, hard sparring. I'm not talking about working out pro wrestling, doing spots and bumps and stuff. This is grappling. This is getting your head cranked. This is getting a guy's forearm bone squeezing and rubbed across your ears. It bursts those blood vessels and all that cartilage in your ears. And we've all seen guys like that, from the amateur wrestlers to the jiu-jitsu practitioners and to some pro wrestlers who are the shooters who do that real grappling, such as jiu-jitsu. Let's bring up an example in pro wrestling today of someone with a nice set of cauliflower ears. And that is Filthy Tom Lawler. No surprise or no mystery as to where he got his. He spent the first part of his life as an MMA fighter, doing jiu-jitsu, doing amateur wrestling, and that's how you get those ears like that. No mistake as to who the tough guys are, because they've been through that training and that grappling, and they've got those cauliflower ears used to be like a badge of honor to those old wrestlers. The guys that didn't have them wanted them, even though they're not pretty. It still shows that you're for real.
It sure does. Look, you're getting a shout out here. Ed's in the chat saying, "Hey, Pop, folks, just for you, apparently, nothing my way." But there you go.
I'm glad Ed's in here tonight. I wanted to see him because Ed, you're gonna like some of the footage we got from this past PPW show. And Ed, I had you in mind. I took some special footage specifically for you at the end of this show that involves Bobby Munson. I'm sure you're gonna see these clips at some point, but brother, I was thinking of you because I knew you would enjoy those last bits of footage I took at the end of that show. Pure cinema.
Yeah. Anyway, Ed's seen the one clip anyway. He's seen the one that everybody's seen. He hasn't seen the full shebang and watching my big ass get dragged to the back afterwards or anything like that, or laying out on that concrete floor. Laying out on that concrete floor till 3/4 the PPW Nation had cleared out of the building already at that point, because I've been that KO'd that evening. But more we could chat more about that at the end of the night here if we still got a little bit of time. It's an interesting territory. Well, let's talk about the NWA influence, because we always talk about the areas that the NWA had their influence on, and they were strong in the Houston area. This particular area saw like the Briscoe or Jack Briscoe in particular, the NWA world champion in Houston around the 1970s and everything. So let's talk a little bit more about that, Pop Smokes, the NWA's influence here on the territory.
For sure, and hopefully our viewers that have watched other documentaries about wrestling or other episodes of Ring Respect Radio understand that whole system of the National Wrestling Alliance, which was an alliance of major city promoters. There was anywhere from 12 to 18 throughout the years of the NWA. These promoters would all meet once a year in Hawaii at a hotel and talk business. They would compare notes. They would talk about talent. They would talk about talent they thought were up and coming. They would talk about talent that were maybe on the way down. But one of the main things they did was take a vote as to who they wanted to crown as the NWA champion and let that champion tour all the areas of the aforementioned promoters to defend that belt in all the different promotions from New York, New Jersey, all the way across to Portland, Oregon, down to San Francisco and Los Angeles, across Texas, all the way to Florida, back up through the South. All those territories that were members of the NWA would get that NWA champion tour through their city. And what that champion would do was come in with a lot of regalness, a lot of hype as the main man in wrestling, and that champion would face the top guy of each territory as he came through. Each top guy of that territory would take the champion to his limit, but fall up short. But what this did was it sold the top babyface or heel, whoever was facing the NWA champion. It would sell that wrestler to the home crowd even more. It would sell the NWA champion to those territory crowds as well. It would make money all the way through. And those territories wrestlers would become legitimized by being able to hang with the NWA champion in a long and tightly contested match. So it was really kind of a brilliant business model to come up with. The champion tours, you would have to pick a champion very carefully. It would have to be a very skilled and very over wrestler that could do that. Someone that could work babyface or heel on a consistent basis, night in and night out, and someone who was able to adapt to different wrestler styles. You wouldn't be in a roster fighting the same guys over and over again. This is a tour now. You would be on the road for a month, 6 weeks, battling different superstars each night in different cities across the world and across mostly North America, but also including Mexico, Puerto Rico, Canada, sometimes England, sometimes Germany. You were the true world champion back then. And only a few wrestlers were really considered great enough to carry that torch. You mentioned Jack Briscoe. There's Terry Funk. There's Dusty Rhodes. There's Harley Race. There's Ric Flair. We all know these names as famous NWA champions. It wasn't just because they happened to win a championship match. It was because they were chosen by the NWA board of directors to be the guy that could carry that belt all the way through all the territories and draw big houses, draw sellouts in all those buildings, and legitimize the top superstars of each territory.
You bet, yeah. And you mentioned some of the names there, Papa Smokes, but they had that NWA affiliation. They also later had the Mid-South UWF affiliation as well, too, allowing for a lot of trading. Some of the other names that grace the territory, too, we're talking about Jose Lothario, Mil Mascaras, Andre the Giant had time there, Ox Baker, again, Bull Ramos, Gino Hernandez, Ted DiBiase, other names that spent time within the Houston market.
And some of those were Texas and Mexico boys right there who were local to that area. But Boesch was big on bringing in guests all the time. You mentioned, we talked about NWA, and then you mentioned Bill Watts's Mid-South or UWF promotion. Boesch brought in and traded talent with all those companies, but also including the AWA as well. Had Vern Gagne down there, but in particular, worked regularly with Nick Bockwinkel, who would come through and defend the AWA title. Bockwinkel, another name very worthy of being amongst Race, Rhodes, and Flair, and Briscoe and Funk as one of the great world champions of the sort of pre-WWE era. Bockwinkel was the man. He could step into the ring with anybody of any style, whether it was babyface or heel, and just put on an awesome match. You want an hour from Bockwinkel? You got it. You want a 2 out of 3 fall match? You got it. You want him to take that local star and give him everything except just the slightest hair of close to a victory at the very, very end. Bockwinkel's another one of those guys that can handle it. And Nick had many, many, many famous and well-respected matches in the Houston area.
Yeah, very much. And Brett saying that his dad loved Jose Lothario and Mil Mascaras. I mean, anybody who goes back and checks out work of theirs, you could see why exactly. I mean, they were a couple of names that don't get brought up enough nowadays, but they are definitely names that should be more talked about. They were great professional wrestlers and had a massive impact there. One of the biggest matchups in the history of the territory itself, Pop Smokes, one of the greats, so to speak, and I don't know your feelings on this. It's Briscoe and Harley Race, the title match that happened in Houston, 1973, considered one of the all-time absolute best Houston matchups of all time. Have you seen this? Did you go back and watch this matchup, Pop Smokes? Did you find it somewhere as well too?
Of course.
And I want your thoughts on it because I can see why, man. This was electric. This was a big boy. This was a big title fight. Like, this was a fight that was booked, well put on. Very, very solid matchup.
Very much so. And like a lot of these old school matches we talk about from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s, the modern fan will find some of these a very different style to watch. For me, it's kind of like coming home. This is the stuff I watched in my childhood. It was just some far less glitzy and glamorous than the TV wrestling that we see today, or even the house shows that we see today. The in-ring product of the big companies has changed a lot over the years, but like you say, Briscoe versus Race, now this is a big, big title match with two of the very top workers in the business. And Jack Briscoe being a Oklahoma and Florida boy, he had done all kinds of wrestling down in the south of the U.S., was very, very popular, had been an All-American amateur wrestler in college, all that stuff. We all know who Gerald Briscoe is, the brother, too, that worked for WWE for a long time. But yeah, Jack Briscoe here's another guy who would have had those cauliflower ears for sure because his life was wrestling. He was a Native American wrestler and just a scientific genius in the ring. Really just technical grappling, technical holds all the time. And now Harley Race, a guy that can hang in a technical match like that as well, but with a bit of a brawling side to him too, and a bit of an unorthodox streak in Harley Race's repertoire as well. And Harley Race known for being a legit tough guy. Ooh, someone you definitely don't want to mess with. So this is two very legitimate wrestlers. And Boesch must have just been salivating at getting this match because this, for 1973, was probably the biggest match you could get by a long shot.
For sure. And as Brett Martinez says, two men you don't cross. That's exactly right there, Brett.
Very much so.
But I mean, you had that, but you also had it when you want to talk about tag team wrestling, because you had those kind of cross border things. You had times when the Von Erichs were making those tours and stuff like that too. So you had the regional feuds with the tag teams of the area and the big names of the Von Erichs traveling through the area as well too.
For sure. And for tag team wrestling, yeah, Boesch had some teams that he would bring up from Mexico. You mentioned Mil Mascaras, a huge star, a wrestling star in the 70s and early 80s. Just had that physique, had the cool mask, had the awesome flying body press and a few other moves. Now, Mil Mascaras was a little bit testy for promoters to deal with because he's famous for that no yob. He always said he, being a Spanish speaker, he's sometimes said his J's with a Y kind of thing, but no yob. Didn't want to ever do jobs because it was hurt his reputation. So Mascaras with an insane win-loss record throughout all this, but promoters were willing to work with him because he drew money all the time. People loved to see Mil Mascaras, and even though he was never a world champion or anything like that, he was one of the biggest wrestling stars of the 70s and 80s, up there with superstar Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes and Bruno Sammartino. Mascaras worked wherever he felt like, including up in New York for Vince McMahon Sr. and all over the country. Anyone that could get their hands on Mascaras would book him for sure. So you had that Mexican influence. You could get the luchadors from Mexico to come up. That always spices up a card a little bit, right? We've seen that with MLW. Bringing in the luchadors is just, it colors up your card a lot because you get some wrestlers with a different style, with a different approach to wrestling. So a couple of your matches stand out as something different on each card. But also, you're talking about the tag team scene. He was bringing in all kinds of exciting tag teams from Jim Crockett Promotions, from Florida, from Tennessee, from San Francisco, from everywhere that had hot tag teams. Now, he used the Rock and Roll Express as a babyface team, probably the top babyface tag team of the 1980s. He used the Fantastics, similar to them, pure baby faces, very popular with the ladies and such like that. And then there were some heel teams too, such as, you and I know, the Sheep Herders, who had the luxury of being able to tour all around the world and all around the U.S., get booked wherever they felt like it because they were such an effective heel tag team. They did those huge runs against Rock and Roll Express and Fantastics and a few other tag teams, just drawing money the whole time and really kind of like building the foundation for what we would later know as like hardcore wrestling.
Drawing blood and drawing money, the motto of the Sheep Herders back in the day in the tag team division. That's for sure. Yeah, and you mentioned about the booking philosophy there too, brawling, technical, lucha. They kind of had everything that drew us to wanting to review MLW when we were doing it was kind of that all those different styles that you would get on a card. So you're not getting the same kind of match over and over again. So I see some of that similar relation with when we started researching Houston, is that they had that as well too. They brought in that variety. There wasn't one defining style in Houston. It was a mix of everything, which is what made it exciting and made them, they sold out a lot of crowds as well too, including the retirement match in 1987 to a sold out show as well.
20,000 people at that. Yeah, like that's nothing to sneer at for an independent territory wrestling card. That's Boesch had been running the Sam Houston Coliseum, which is also torn down now, but used to be used for all kinds of events there, including music and sports and all that stuff. So they could configure it for smaller crowds for wrestling so that it didn't look like the giant empty room, but you could pack it too. And you remember, Munson, you probably rewatched some of those matches that we had seen before, but in the old days of Ring Respect Radio, we used to play matches from territories and we would talk about and do some alternate commentary on some of those old matches. The TV production was quite high, like the production value was very good. You remember some of those matches, Munson? We used to marvel at the camera work and the sound and the clearness of the tapes and everything. They really, really did a good job. And that Sam Houston Coliseum looks awesome in those old matches. I can just imagine what it was like as a fan to be able to come in there on a weekly basis and see the tapings for the very popular TV show he had.
You bet, yeah. Now, is there anything else you want to touch on before we talk about kind of the reason why we got to the end of the Houston territory. Is there anything else to touch on there, Pop Smokes?
Well, we talked about tag teams. I just wanted to say he had, of course, a bunch of big singles wrestlers, and Paul Boesch really built that promotion around a couple of top baby faces and couple of top heels, but particularly baby faces. He had the Junkyard Dog, and he had Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and those were the two very, very popular wrestlers that he had, that he used as top baby faces and would bring in lots of different heels to feed to those guys, because that's who was selling the tickets. We've all seen JYD and Hacksaw Duggan eventually, as the territory system started to dry up. Pardon me. They went up to New York and worked for, by this time, Vince McMahon Jr., the Vince that we all know, and making the big paydays up in New York. But before that, they were big stars in Houston and all around the South. Duggan had been a football star in Texas and in Oklahoma as a college player, and he might have even played some pro. Same thing with Junkyard Dog. And we've all seen Junkyard Dog as well, the kind of charisma that he had, that the fans just took to. He had the dance, he had the little dance that everyone would do to his old song, Grab Them Cakes. Everybody thinking that was real funny and real cool. JYD just had that charisma oozing from him, had the fans eating out of the palm of his hand. And same thing with Paul Boesch. When he realized the potential of these two baby faces, he thought, I can structure my entire company and all my shows around these two top guys. I'll just keep bringing in heels from other from other territories, just keep feeding them to those baby faces. And the fans kept coming and kept paying. It was a great setup that Boesch had going there.
It really was. And unfortunately, it had to come to an end, like every territory we talk about here on a trip through the territories. But this is a little different, Bob, I suppose. A lot of the time we're talking about territories that are starting to break down, people not getting paid, different reasons why the territory was starting to show cracks in its system. It wasn't really the case here. This was a case of the times were changing, TV production was changing, the nationalization of professional wrestling with the, WWF becoming national and popular across the globe. It didn't manage to keep up with the times. The top names were all going to work for Vince in New York, like you said. And that's just where it kind of came to an end. It didn't come to an end on a bad note or a rough note. Like we said, Houston did it right. There's nothing dirty you can find about Houston, nothing controversial you can find about Houston. It was just a good wrestling territory.
Yeah, that's right. Well put, Munson. And as the famous poet T.S. Eliot said, it went out not with a bang, but with a whimper. And I think that was testament to Paul Boesch seeing the writing that was on the wall as a businessman quite early, and seeing that, damn it, I'm watching some of these other federations go under. I'm seeing the talent raids that WWF is doing and Vince McMahon is doing. Just, you can call it a talent raid, or you can call it just, that's how business goes. The workers are going to go where the most money is, and that's just how it is in business. So, yeah, Paul Boesch didn't really fight against this nationalization of the cable deals that Vince McMahon was getting, whereas his neighbor in Oklahoma, Bill Watts, was fighting it all the way. He was fighting tooth and nail against Vince McMahon, but Paul Boesch saw the writing on the wall, started to kind of just phase out his company, and then Boesch started to just, I'm going to work for some other companies too. He went up and did some work with Jim Crockett Promotions in Georgia and the Carolinas as an announcer, as a promoter, as a backstage agent. Wherever he could get work, he was doing it. And then Boesch eventually worked for Vince McMahon in the WWF. Not for long, but he did make that trip up to New York himself, because he saw that the business was changing. The whole climate of the wrestling business had changed, and he was going to try and go with that flow as long as he could. and he made a pretty good run of it. By the time that the WWF threw the Paul Boesch retirement show in 1988, Boesch was old. He was basically done with the business, and he died 2 years after that. So talk about a life in wrestling. He really did it all, and then he worked in wrestling pretty much right up to his deathbed and made a huge mark on the business, is a member of every Hall of Fame in wrestling that there is, including the WWE Hall of Fame, which now has a Legends wing, which doesn't seem as prestigious as being in the main Hall of Fame. It's kind of a bullshit Hall of Fame anyway, but Bosch is in there, so that's quite a feather in his cap, and a wrestling life spent in the business for all those years.
You bet. Brett saying, I've often wondered who owns the Houston Wrestling Video Library. I can actually answer that one because while the Bosch family owned it, it's actually licensed or whatever. Its licensing rights were purchased by NWA owner and president Billy Corgan in 2017, so that at any given time, if Corgan wishes to use some of the old Houston territory footage, he has the access to do so. So I mean, it's in reasonable hands. I'll say that much. I mean, say what you will about Billy Corgan. Not everybody's a big fan of everything he does, but he appreciates the past, and he's not going to bastardize that footage by any means. So, you know, good on him for having a hold of it, and hopefully it gets used in all the right ways from there. But this has been a fun one. I got to say, Pop Smokes, I really do appreciate Brett reaching out and saying, guys, I'd love you to cover the Houston territory. We say it so many times. We want audience interaction. We want audience recommendation. What do you want from us? We can come up with these ideas ourselves, but better yet, what do you want to sit through? What do you want to talk about? That's what it's all about. And that's what we did here. Brett made a great recommendation. We brought that to the table. And I, for one, want to thank you, Brett. Thank you very much for reaching out and saying, choose Houston. And it's been a fun time tonight talking about this, Pop Smokes.
Yeah, very much so. And Houston was on our list of territories that we hadn't got to yet, but Brett bringing that up, making the request, makes it all the more fun for us to say, all right, we'll do that one next. Let's strike while the iron is hot. And its legacy remains to this day. It's weird because they didn't really have like a prominent champion in that territory. They used other champions. Bosch's model was just a little bit different than the other territories, but as you can see, it worked out just fine. And it's an interesting point that you bring up about the video library too. I'd rather see it in the hands of Billy Corgan, a guy that respects the history of wrestling, than just getting dusty in the WWE warehouses somewhere. And maybe some people will see it on some channel somewhere at some point, but at best, I think it's better in the hands of Billy Corgan, who might get that out there and who will treat it with the reverence and respect it deserves.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that we're getting some appreciation here, not only from Brett, but also from the Mangler about the research and bringing this to light and the attention to detail. Thank you to you both for being here, participating, chatting in the chat. You know, Papa Smokes, we'll be doing another one in about a month's time. We'll have to figure out which one we're going to come to. We're going to have some indie wrestling to get back to here on the channel, talk about some reviews coming up. I'm sure we'll dig up some really good material, but I also think we got trivia got to be around the corner here. Don't you think? I'm thinking it's no better time to kick off the spooky season. Well, no, we're not quite at spooky. It was fall season. Let's call it the fall season. We'll do a fall season drop of WTF Do We Know About Wrestling trivia night. Maybe we do that next Thursday. How are you feeling about next Thursday trivia night, Pop Smokes?
Anytime for trivia. Always like a good game. Always like the respectful competition that goes on, mostly respectful competition that goes on, but between all the players. And as a former Twitch trivia champion, I like to see the viewers and the listeners come in and really kick ass at some trivia, have some fun, get a bunch of questions right, and keep those titles around the waists of the Ring Respect Radio listeners.
You bet. Brett saying, if Christmas gets November, why shouldn't Halloween get September too? I love that comment, Brett. Spooky season should come early. I agree with you. But yeah, let's do it. Trivia night next Thursday right here on the channel. Stay tuned for that. But now I got to ask the next question, Pops folks, for Trivia night's theme. Let's throw it out there. Do we want to do, I'm going to give two options, and both of them pertain to having to have listened to what we bring to the channel here. Choice number one is the trivia will all be geared at territory wrestling, or option number two, every question will be geared towards something to do with Prairie Pro Wrestling. One of the two options for next Thursday's trivia. What do we got? What do you think, Pops folks? Chat, let me know. What do you guys want to see? Prairie Pro Wrestling Trivia Night or Wrestling History Trivia Night for next Thursday's trivia? Pops folks, I know I put you in a bit of a pickle there. Which one are you looking forward to?
Well, yeah, it is a pickle, Munson. I can't really decide between those two. Both of those choices are right up my alley. I got to get off the screen here and become a player for these ones, because maybe I could get my title back. But I think we should do both of those themes at some point. The only question is which one next week. Okay, we got one vote in for Brett, Wrestling History. He wants some territory action. That would be very fun. That opens up a multitude of endless questions and content that you could get from that one. PPW, little more specialized. Some of our viewers watch PPW regularly on our YouTube channel, but that will be difficult for some of our trivia people.
It will be, but either way, one way or another, you will get trivia night here next Thursday night. It's going to be a hell of a good time. Can't wait for it. Looking forward to having everybody out. Looking forward to you all participating in either our live YouTube or Twitch chat. So if you're watching on replay, make sure to join live next Thursday night so you too can participate in wrestling-based trivia. But Papa suppose we're getting to the top of the hour. So in the meantime and in between time, my friend, that beautiful ticker's on the screen, costing me a whole lot of pennies. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you and what you got coming up next?
All right, every Thursday night I'm here on Ring Respect Radio at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time and on Ole Podcasts and Video Bros Network. So if you want to contact me or reach out to me on social media, I am on Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as X. I am at smokes_Papa. Also on Twitch at Papa_Smokes_.
Yeah, you bet. And yes, thank you, Brett, for the suggestion, and thank you for being
Thanks,
here
Brett.
chatting with us, keeping that chat active the whole show. Really appreciate you, my friend. As for myself, Bobby Munson over the X, it's real Bobby Munson. Instagram and Threads, Video Bros SK, Twitch, Video Bro _Bobby Munson, and Blue Sky, it's BobbyMunson.bsky1.social. As for what's coming up, of course, this Sunday, Papa Spokes, it is Point of View, your favorite Sunday sports stream at 11 a.m. Eastern time here on the channel. Myself, Andre, and Ed are going to be back on the screen along with our viewers talking about this week's football predictions, giving you update to our NFL fantasy draft that we got going on. But we're also going to be doing, instead of doing this Saturday night, doing a special episode of After the Fight, we're going to be talking about the Netflix fights that are taking place this Saturday night, this Sunday on Point of View. So stay tuned for that.
Nice.
As for this Saturday, though, how about this, Papa Spokes? How about a little Prairie Pro Wrestling with the Video Bros? We just recorded our full recap and review of everything that went down at Prairie Pro Wrestling's Los Slamtos, including my brand new conspiracy theory that you can only catch by checking out that particular show this coming Saturday. I know Papa Spokes is rolling his eyes. Find out why when you tune in to Prairie Pro Wrestling's YouTube channel this coming Saturday. And everything else you can find right here, OLE Podcast, also on the Video Bros Network. You can catch OLE Podcast at all social media, showing up on the ticker down below, as well as YouTube and Twitch. If you would do so much, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell so you know anytime we have new material coming out here on the channel. Also, leaving us a comment after the show. Please do that. It helps the algorithm, helps us out. We love hearing from you, interacting with you, wanting to know what you want to see from us next. But you know what? That's about all the time we've got this week. Thank you to everybody who's in the chat, including our good friend, the Mangler, always sticking around every single Thursday night. Thank you so much. That is going to be it for myself from Papa Spokes. We are out. We will see you in 1 week's time. Good night to you, Astrid. Take care.